today what I'm going to do is I'm doing an experiment in barbecuing here. I'm going to cook some pork back ribs, and beginning the process by doing marinating. So of course I'm going to use some soya sauce, my favorite beer. Hope it works out well here, bit of blue. And these are, of course, are the back ribs, and I'm going to cut them in half just so they can fit in the bowl, and then I'll actually begin the marinating. So when we're talking about back ribs, there's three basic kinds. We've got our short ribs, which are, you know, just about that wide, layers of meat and fat that can be quite tough if not properly cooked. You've got the spare ribs, which are basically quite a bit wider, you know, maybe about 8 inches wide or in length, each one of these ribs. They're generally quite flavorful, and they're coming from the side of you know, whatever animal it is. And of course we've got the back rib, which is what I'm cooking today. It appears that Maggie managed to buy these things $8 for a rack. I think it was at Food Basics. So I mean, in itself, that's a great deal. So why not? Let's cook. You know, I've got a nice new barbecue gift for having worked at my company for the last 25 years. It's a Broil King, so I can't wait to just try this out and see how they turn out for dinner tonight. Here's a real important point. You want to use the end of a spoon and basically just get underneath the membrane, because that's going to make the meat tough. Once you make yourself a little finger grip, you're then able to pull the membrane off the inside of the actual rib. In doing so, you don't have the chewy bits at the end, and also it allows better penetration of the meat while you marinate. It's kind of hard to actually film when you're using one hand to hold the camera. My wife's asleep right now. She had a late night. So anyway, I'm doing my best. It's coming off. Actually, this membrane is called the pleura, and must admit it's nothing near as tough in the pork as it is in the beef. You try and pull off the pleura in beef, you're getting little stringy bits underneath the edges of your fingernails. It's quite unpleasant. So liberal dousing with the soya sauce all across the top here. There we go, nice. And I'm going to pour some beer over top of that. So that's a half open can from last. Of course, that lovely sound. Have a sip of that before we. Good beer, man. Pour the rest across the top here. We're just going to let this sit for maybe a little while, maybe about 40 minutes to marinate all sides, and then we'll get her onto the barbecue. It's barbecue time. Here we go. We got the old Broil King going here. I've only got one burner on. Yeah, it's looking a bit dirty. I got to clean it. But one burner on, and keeping it way down low here. The purpose, of course, is that we need to reach 250 right there. We're going to keep her at 250 for several hours. So there it sits. You notice I poured some juice into the cup of the rib. So we'll give her a couple of hours like that. Let's see where it takes us. I'm going to do a little experiment here. I'm going to use some apples. Bad boy's down right now. You can see what I've done here. Temperature's still a little tiny bit higher. Just get her down. Keeps trying to creep up towards 300, not so good. Anyway, take the apples and we're going to set them along the edges. Let them just basically come apart as these things cook. And we'll see what kind of effect we're going to make here. Get a feeling it will impregnate the meat and be a lovely apple sort of flavor. So let's close her up. Now I'm not so sure, you know, how true it is, but I kind of go with the theory that you shouldn't be opening the lid too often, because when you open the lid, the muscle, the meat around the bone tenses up like this. So these have been going for 4 hours now. You can see how the apples look. They've almost turned into things that look like potatoes at this point. Just pulling them off there. You can see the color. burning the fingers. Okay, you can see the color of the ribs. They're actually pulling back from the bone now. That's a sure sign that they're, you know, getting ready. They're somewhat tender, a bit like a receding gum line or something from the teeth. So we're going to turn them over, give them another little while, and then we should be ready at that point. You can see I've chucked in a little bit of other stuff, onions and potatoes as well. So I just cranked up the heat for the last couple of seconds. Well, I shouldn't say seconds, you know, the last 4 or 5 minutes, just to kind of singe them a bit more. But they're definitely super, super tender. They're coming apart as I'm taking them off the actual grill. Last one's on there just for a tiny bit longer. Just it was sitting out of the actual heat. So this just comes apart. Truly comes apart. I'm going to taste it here in a second. There is a smell of apple to it. Wonderful. The inside is so tender. The outside is quite crispy and salty.